Hi, my name is Tim Zerillo, and this is the first, or the third actually, of our injury client series about basic automobile coverage. And I wanted to shoot this very brief video to explain to you about how automobile coverage works in the state of Maine generally. My typical disclaimer is that I don't know how it will work with your given case until I hear from you, so if you have any questions, please give me a call. The basics of coverage that you may have on your car are collision, and obviously that pays for damage to your car regardless of fault. So you don't have to be at fault. If you have your collision coverage, there's probably a deductible associated with it, and that's usually for car accidents. Comprehensive coverage is involved usually when there is a glass loss, and often when there is a loss for a collision with an animal. And again, that's coverage regardless of fault. But then you get into the liability insurance that you all will have on your cars. It's very important for you to have good liability limits. The minimum liability limits in the state of Maine are $50,000 per accident up to per person up to an aggregate of $100,000 per accident. So if you have automobile liability coverage, bodily injury liability coverage, that's what you have. But if it's me, I would suggest you get more. It's very inexpensive, and ask for a $100,000 per person, $300,000 per claim or more bodily injury liability coverage, so you can protect your assets if you're ever in an accident. But more importantly to you, and the coverage that you really need to have, and no, I'm not selling any insurance policies, but this is very important, is for you to have uninsured motorist coverage benefits at an adequate level. Now here's why. Let's say you're driving down the road and you're rear-ended, you have horrible damages, you unfortunately need a lot of medical treatment, you go through that treatment, you have $50,000 worth of medical treatment, permanent impairment and future medical treatment, and let's say your total claim is worth $300,000. Well, if the person who hit you had a 50 over 100 policy, as we call it, 50,000 per person, up to 100,000 per accident total, then you would have on your $300,000 claim $50,000 that you could collect from that person. You will have uninsured motorist coverages, but if you had the minimum for that, $100,000 per person per accident, up to $300,000 aggregate, then you would be able to subtract the $50,000 policy from the $100,000 you had, and you'd be able to collect 50 from your own carrier and 50,000 from the person who hit you. A little confusing, but it probably makes sense. Now, the problem is you're able to collect $100,000 then on a claim that's worth $300,000. If you had higher uninsured motorist coverage rates, let's say you had $250,000 over a $500,000 policy, then you would be able to collect the first $50,000 again from the person who is at fault, and the remaining $250,000 or $200,000, $250 on your policy minus the 50 you already collected for an additional $200,000 from your own coverage, your own uninsured motorist coverage. In that case, it's underinsured motorist coverage. People think it only applies to uninsured cases, although it does apply to that as well. So by having higher uninsured motorist coverage and bodily injury liability coverages, you're really protecting yourself. Obviously, insurance automobile coverages are much more confusing and complicated than these brief examples, but these are some common issues that you'll run across, and I would encourage you to call me at 207-347-6063, 207-347-6063, or visit us on the web at www.getzerillo.com. That's www.getzerillo.com. Thanks for listening, and have a safe driving. No texting.